Welcome back, my lovelies. This is the Taekook fanfiction story part 2. The Two Faces of the JEONS. If you did not watch the first part, please go watch it first. Now let's begin. Weeks had passed since Taeyoung started his position at JEONS Corporation, and though he maintained his calm and polite professionalism, something inside him had changed. He couldn't deny that Juk, his charming, unpredictable boss, had begun to occupy a quiet place in his thoughts. Every time Juk smiled at him, every time his voice softened unexpectedly, Taeyoung's heart fluttered just a little. He wanted to believe there was something real in those looks. Something deeper behind all that confidence. But recently Juk had grown distant. His texts became shorter, his smiles colder. The attention that once burned so brightly now flickered like a dying flame. Still, Taeyoung tried to ignore it. He focused on his work, reminding himself that love and work should never mix, no matter how much his heart betrayed him. That same week, Jungkook returned to Seoul. After completing his rotation at a children's hospital in Busan, he came home with his white coat folded neatly in his bag and tired eyes that spoke of long nights and countless patience. He was still the same humble, soft-spoken man, though his resolve had only deepened. When his mother greeted him at the mansion with tears and pride, she couldn't stop herself from fussing. "You've lost weight, Jungkook. Are they not feeding you in those hospitals?" He laughed softly, hugging her. "I was feeding others, Mom. That counts for something, right?" His father entered the room, smiling warmly. "It's good to have you home, son. The company's been busy, your brother's been running the show." Jungkook's smile faded slightly. "I've heard," he said, glancing toward the large portraits lining the hallway. One of his parents, one of him, and one of Juk, each a mirror of the other. Mr. John clapped him on the shoulder. "Why don't you stop by the office tomorrow? Everyone would love to see you." "I might," Jungkook replied softly. "It's been a while." The next morning, Taeyoung was at his desk early, reviewing some files before Juk's arrival. The CEO had texted him late the previous night saying he might not come in. "Too many meetings, too little patience," were his words. So when Taeyoung saw the office doors open and Juk step inside, he immediately stood up with a polite bow. "Good morning, sir," he greeted, trying to sound cheerful. But the man who looked at him wasn't smiling. His gaze was gentle, not sharp, his steps calm, not cocky. For a split second, Taeyoung was confused. "Good morning," Jungkook said quietly, returning the bow slightly. An action that startled Taeyoung. Juk never bowed to anyone. "Sir, you're early today," Taeyoung said, offering a shy smile. "Do you need the meeting notes from yesterday?" Jungkook tilted his head. "Meeting notes?" Taeyoung blinked. "Yes, for the Daegu investors, the ones you met last week." Realization flickered in Jungkook's eyes. He smiled politely, realizing who Taeyoung must think he was. "All right. Those." He hesitated, unsure whether to correct him, but something about the young man's earnest eyes, the way he spoke with respect and kindness, made Jungkook curious. So instead of explaining, he simply nodded. "I'm just here to look around today," Jungkook said softly. "You must be one of our new employees?" Taeyoung was shocked. Yes, sir. Kim Tae-young, your personal assistant. The words made Jungkook's eyebrows lift. Personal assistant? His brother had a habit of collecting assistants like trophies, but something about Taeyoung didn't fit that pattern. He was refined, gentle, and sincere, the kind of person who radiated goodness without even trying. Jungkook extended his hand. It's nice to meet you, Taeyoung. Taeyoung blinked, surprised again. Jack never shook hands. He simply nodded when he felt like it. Still, Taeyoung reached out shyly, his hand warm against Jungkook's. You too, sir, he said softly, eyes flickering down in modesty. When their hands touched, Jungkook noticed the faint tremble, not of fear but something else. A quiet unease, perhaps. He studied Taeyoung for a moment. You seem tense. Has my brother been overworking you? Taeyoung looked up in confusion. Your brother? And that's when Jungkook realized he'd let it slip. He smiled faintly, deciding there was no harm in honesty now. Yes, he said gently. I'm Jungkook, Jack's twin. Taeyoung froze, his lips parting slightly. You're not? Jungkook shook his head. No. I'm the other one, the quiet one, as most people say. Taeyoung's cheeks flushed immediately. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't realize. I thought you were. It's all right, Jungkook interrupted softly. You're not the first to confuse us. He smiled again, a real smile, not the rehearsed one Jack used. It was gentle, warm, and unexpectedly comforting. Something in Taeyoung's chest stirred. For the first time. He saw the same face he saw every day, but this one felt different. Still, Jungkook continued, glancing around the office, it's strange seeing my brother's world up close. Everything feels so cold here. Taeyoung hesitated before saying quietly, not everyone here is cold, sir. Jungkook looked at him, meeting his gaze. I can tell. The moment stretched, brief, quiet, charged with something neither could name. Before either could speak again, the elevator chimed. Jack stepped out, sunglasses perched on his head, phone pressed to his ear. The air in the room shifted immediately. Taeyoung, he said sharply, eyes narrowing as he noticed Jungkook standing near his desk. What the hell? Jungkook turned, calm as ever. Relax, brother. I just came to visit. Jack scoffed. Well, visit somewhere else. You're confusing my staff. Your staff, Jungkook repeated, glancing briefly toward Taeyoung. You should treat them better then? Jack's eyes flickered with annoyance. Don't tell me how to run my office. Jungkook didn't argue. He simply gave Taeyoung one last, soft look before leaving. Taeyoung, I hope we'll speak again. As the door closed behind him, Taeyoung's heart was racing, not from fear but from the strange calm that Jungkook left behind. Jack turned to him, his voice sharp. What did he say to you? Taeyoung hesitated. Nothing, sir. Just, hello. Jack stared at him for a long moment, then smirked, though his eyes were cold. Don't get too comfortable with him. He's not like me. Taeyoung lowered his gaze. Yes, sir. But deep inside, something whispered that Jack was wrong, that Jungkook was exactly what Taeyoung needed. And though none of them knew it yet, that one mistaken meeting would be the spark that changed all three of their lives forever. The days at John Corporation passed with an odd rhythm. For Taeyoung, it was a mixture of pride and unease. He loved his work, organizing Juk's schedule, preparing reports, greeting clients, yet something about the young CEO's gaze made him restless. There was admiration in Juk's eyes, yes, but there was also possession. It was too intense, too fast. And then there was him, John Jung-kook, the doctor who had appeared out of nowhere one afternoon, all warmth and gentleness, holding a stack of files for his father. The kind of man whose voice never rose, whose smile was genuine, whose eyes carried quiet sincerity. Taeyoung remembered that smile longer than he wanted to admit. It started subtly. One afternoon a week, Jung-kook would stop by the company. Then twice. Then suddenly it was almost every other day. He'd show up with the excuse of dropping medical forms, checking something for father, or waiting for a meeting to finish. But everyone could see through it. Even the receptionists whispered, "Dr. John is here again. He must really love this building." Or quietly, "Do you think he's here for the new assistant?" Inside the CEO's office, Taeyoung looked up from his desk one afternoon, startled to see Jung-kook leaning against the doorframe, smiling politely. "Good afternoon, Mr. Kim. I brought the annual health report for the employees," Jung-kook said, holding a file. "Oh, Dr. John." Taeyoung stood quickly, bowing slightly. "You didn't need to bring that yourself. I could have sent someone to the hospital." Jung-kook chuckled softly. "It's fine. I needed the walk." Their eyes met for a second longer than they should have. Taeyoung felt warmth crawl up his neck. Before he could say more, the door behind Jung-kook opened and Juk's voice cut in. Well, my twin doctor visits again." Jung-kook turned, his tone neutral. "I just came to drop something off." Juk smirked, stepping close enough to sling an arm over Jung-kook's shoulder. "Or maybe my good brother's here to see my assistant." Taeyoung froze. Jung-kook gently brushed off his brother's arm. "Don't make assumptions about people, Juk. Not everyone thinks like you." Juk's smile tightened, but he said nothing. The moment Jung-kook left, he turned his cold eyes toward Taeyoung. "So," he said slowly, "you seem pretty friendly with my brother, huh?" Taeyoung blinked, confused. "He just came to deliver some documents, sir." "Ah," Juk replied, a faint smirk curling on his lips. "Be careful, Taeyoung. He's nice. But he's not good at keeping distance. Don't let him distract you from your duties." It was ironic, Taeyoung thought, coming from the man who couldn't stop finding excuses to touch his hand or compliment his looks. A few days later, during dinner at the John mansion, Chairman John leaned back with a knowing grin as he addressed Jung-kook. "So, son," the chairman said, "I hear you've been visiting the company quite frequently. Should I prepare you a permanent desk there?" Jung-kook nearly choked on his water. "Father, it's not like that. I just like helping where I can." "Helping?" Mrs. John teased, smiling softly. "I didn't know your medical license included office management." Juk snorted. "You mean flirting management?" "My brother seems to have taken a special interest in my assistant." "Juk," Jung-kook warned, his voice calm but edged. "Oh, come on," Juk continued, leaning back with a smirk. "Every time I turn around, there you are." hanging around Taeyoung's desk like you're checking his pulse. What's next? A diagnosis of how beautiful he is. Their father's brow rose in mild amusement. Taeyoung, you said? The new assistant. Yes, Jungkook said softly, setting down his glass. He's a good worker. Respectful. Kind. I just don't want him getting hurt. Mrs. John's smile faded slightly. Because of your brother? Jungkook met her gaze, his eyes serious. Because not everyone deserves to be treated like a temporary thrill. The room went quiet. Jack's smirk faltered, only for a second. Then he laughed, though there was no humor in it. You always act so perfect, don't you? Always the savior. But remember, Jungkook, not everyone wants to be saved. He stood, adjusting his suit jacket. I'll pass on dessert. I have work to do. He walked away, but his steps were heavy. That night, as Jack sat in his car outside the company, he thought of Taeyoung's smile. The one that used to brighten his boring days. But lately, Taeyoung's laughter seemed softer around Jungkook. His grip on the steering wheel tightened. He wasn't used to losing. Especially not to his brother. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Jungkook sat at his desk, unable to focus on his reports. His mind kept wandering back to Taeyoung's polite bow, his shy smile, and the way his voice softened whenever he said, Dr. John. He told himself he just wanted to protect Taeyoung from Jack's games. But deep down, something warmer, something far more dangerous, had already begun to take root. Something in the air had shifted. Jack noticed it first in the smallest ways. The way Taeyoung's smile had faded around him, the way he politely avoided eye contact, the way Jungkook's name seemed to appear more often on his phone screen. Every time Jungkook visited, Taeyoung would brighten. Every time Jungkook spoke, Taeyoung listened. And for the first time in his life, Jeonjuk, the golden heir, the confident playboy, felt something new, threatened. He couldn't stand the thought that his quiet, self-righteous brother had taken what was supposed to be his. It happened late one evening. Most of the office staff had already gone home, leaving only the low hum of the city lights beyond the glass windows. Taeyoung was still at his desk, finishing up reports Jack had asked for. When the office door opened, he didn't even look up. Mr. John, I'll be done in a few minutes. He froze when he saw Jack leaning against the wall, his expression unreadable, eyes dark with something sharp behind them. You've been spending a lot of time with my brother lately, Jack said quietly. Taeyoung blinked. Dr. John just came by for the employee health reports. Don't lie. Jack's voice was low, dangerous. I see the way you look at him. I don't know what you mean, Taeyoung murmured, taking a step back. Jack's smile was thin. You think he's better than me, don't you? Please, sir, this isn't appropriate. He moved toward him too quickly, cornering him against the wall. Taeyoung's breath hitched, his heart racing in his chest. Stop, Taeyoung whispered, trying to step aside, but Jack's hand gripped his wrist. I said don't walk away from me, he snapped. In the struggle to pull free, Taeyoung stumbled, his arm twisting awkwardly as he tried to break away. Pain shot up his wrist and he gasped. Jack froze for half a second, realizing what had happened. Taeyoung's wrist had bent wrong when he'd yanked away, but instead of helping him, Jack's pride turned cruel. You should have known better than to make me look like a fool, he hissed, his tone cutting deep. You're nothing special, Taeyoung. Just an employee who got lucky. Taeyoung's eyes welled up. He didn't say another word. He just clutched his wrist and ran. By the time he reached the hospital, his breath was ragged, eyes red from holding back tears. The nurse at the desk stood up immediately when she recognized him. Sir, are you all right? Your wrist. I need to see Dr. John Jung-kook, he whispered, voice trembling. Moments later, Jung-kook emerged from one of the exam rooms. His gentle expression faltered instantly when he saw Taeyoung's tear-streaked face and the way he cradled his wrist against his chest. Taeyoung, he breathed, striding forward. What happened? The younger man couldn't hold it anymore. The tears spilled freely now. I just fell, he stammered weakly, trying to protect Juk even now. But Jung-kook wasn't fooled. He carefully took Taeyoung's wrist, examining the swelling. His voice was low, shaking slightly. This wasn't a fall. Taeyoung flinched at the tone. Jung-kook was still calm, but there was fury simmering underneath, an anger he rarely showed. Who did this to you? Taeyoung shook his head. Please, just don't. Jung-kook's jaw tightened. He placed his hand gently on Taeyoung's shoulder, his voice breaking. You came to me hurt. Crying. I can't pretend I don't know what's happening. Taeyoung's lip trembled and finally he whispered the truth. It was Juk. Silence. For a heartbeat, Jung-kook didn't move. Then his hands slowly curled into fists. The warmth in his eyes turned to ice. He stood up so suddenly that the chair scraped back against the floor. Stay here, he said quietly. I'll be back. The hospital lights were soft, muted by the hour. Most of the staff had gone home, leaving only the steady hum of machines and the faint scent of antiseptic. Jung-kook sat across from Taeyoung in the small examination room, his expression torn between calm professionalism and deep, quiet anger. Taeyoung's wrist trembled slightly as Jung-kook examined it, his large hand steady and impossibly gentle. Does it hurt here? Jung-kook asked softly, pressing just below the swelling. Taeyoung winced, biting his lip. A little. I'm sorry, Jung-kook murmured almost to himself. His touch moved slower after that, careful, respectful. The tension in Taeyoung's shoulders slowly eased under the warmth of Jung-kook's care. He watched as the doctor wrapped his wrist with clean, precise motions. Every pull of the bandage a silent promise. You're safe now. When Jung-kook finished, he looked up and met Taeyoung's eyes. The world outside seemed to disappear. You didn't deserve this, Jung-kook said finally, voice trembling with restrained emotion. Not from anyone. Especially not from him. Taeyoung blinked, tears gathering again. I didn't mean for it to happen. I just wanted to do my job. I didn't think. Hey, Jung-kook interrupted gently, placing a hand on his uninjured one. You don't have to explain. None of it was your fault. For a moment, neither moved. The only sound was the quiet rhythm of their breathing. Jung-kook's thumb brushed over Taeyoung's knuckles, grounding him. You're shaking, Jung-kook whispered. Taeyoung laughed weakly. I'm just scared. I've never seen anyone look at me like that before. Jung-kook's eyes softened. You'll never see it again. I'll make sure of it. Something in his voice, the steady conviction, the tenderness, broke through the fear still tangled in Taeyoung's chest. And before he could stop himself, he leaned forward just slightly, close enough to feel the warmth of Jungkook's breath. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Jungkook's hand rose hesitantly, cupping the side of Taeyoung's face. I shouldn't. Taeyoung shook his head faintly. Please. Don't apologize. Their lips met in the quiet of the hospital room, slow, trembling, a collision of sorrow and comfort. It wasn't hungry or rushed. It was a moment suspended in time, where fear and tenderness found each other. When they finally parted, Taeyoung's tears had stopped. Jungkook rested his forehead against his, whispering, "You're safe now, Tae. I promise." The drive to Taeyoung's apartment was quiet. The city lights blurred past the windows, painting golden streaks across Jungkook's face. Taeyoung sat beside him, cradling his wrist, still feeling the ghost of Jungkook's hand on his cheek. Jungkook finally spoke, voice low. "If you ever feel unsafe again, call me. No matter what time it is." "I mean it." Taeyoung nodded, eyes glistening. "Thank you for everything." Jungkook smiled faintly. "You don't have to thank me for caring." He walked him to the door, waited until Taeyoung was safely inside, and only then turned back toward his car. His jaw tightened with every step. He could still see the faint bruising on Taeyoung's wrist, the way he'd flinched when asked what happened. By the time he reached the John mansion, his calm was gone. The sound of his car slamming shut echoed through the night. To be continued. Stay tuned for part 3. Thanks for watching.